So this video is about how Grand Theft Auto Vice City introduced me to a lot of '80s music. Um, First of all, Grand Theft Auto Vice City came out at the end of the sixth grade for me. I got it in the summer after sixth grade, and basically, it it was all everyone in my school was talking about at the beginning of seventh grade. All the guys had Vice City, or not all the coolest guys had Vice City, but I don't know if it's cool, but like some guys had Vice City, and I was considered like a bad boy because I had Vice City, and but it was funny because the music was really sensitive in Vice City, but I was considered like a bad boy for playing. Oh, you play Vice City? Oh my god! But like some of them had Vice City, but some of them didn't because their parents wouldn't let them play it. Because when you're in the seventh grade, right, a lot of parents didn't let them play mature games, and Vice City was as mature as it gets, especially back then. I don't know what today, what the edgiest game is today, but back then the edgiest game was Vice City, and a lot of their parents didn't let them play it, and yeah, so I was considered like one like a bad boy for playing Vice City, but the music was like this super sensitive '80s music, and I've heard '80s music before. I heard it on the radio, I heard it on TV, but in that was the first time I really got introduced to a lot of '80s music. That was probably when I first fell in love with '80s music. Ever since Vice City, '80s music has been my favorite genre of music. I, and it has uh, the most grouping of favorite songs that I have is of any time period or any specific type of music is in '80s music. I consider that a genre in and of itself. I consider every decade to be a genre, even though a lot of people don't consider decades to be genres. I do consider decades to be genres because um, everything kind of sounded the same in the '80s from where I see it as a 2000s kid or '90s kid or whatever. Everything kind of sounded the same in the '80s in the same way I think in the '90s everything sounded the same. But or any decade I think everything sounds the same. But that's just my opinion. But yeah, so Vice City, you had songs like Pale Shelter by Tears for Fears. You had songs like Call Me by Go West. And it turns out Go West is my favorite band of all time. I didn't know that at the time. I had to listen to uh, The King of Wishful Thinking and We Close Our Eyes. I only heard those a few years after that. Um, but uh, but I heard first time I heard a Go West song was in Vice City, Call Me. And then the first time I knew who Tears for Fears was in Vice City, I guess, with Pale Shelter. Pale Shelter is a very underrated Tears for Fears song. It's not just Everybody Wants to Rule the World. It's not just Shout. It's not just Sowing the Seeds of Love. There's also Pale Shelter and a number of other great songs like Head Over Heels. But Pale Shelter is very underrated. A lot of people know Tears for Fears, but they don't know Pale Shelter. Listen to Pale Shelter. It's a great song. Um, so like you had this like super edgy, dark, violent game in Vice City, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, and the music was like this super sensitive '80s music, and it's just funny how the two. Honestly, the gameplay, I wasn't that obsessed with the gameplay in Vice City. I was more obsessed with the music. I did love the gameplay too, especially the driving. The driving was my favorite part. I've never experienced a game where I drove around the city like Vice City. I never did anything like that in a video game before, not even close. And there's been so many copycats for Grand Theft Auto over the years. So many other games that did open world or whatever, but none of them could capture that feeling I had in Vice City. And that's why I don't even play open world games anymore because I didn't even after Grand Theft Auto 4 I didn't play any open world games after that because I had gotten everything I wanted out of the open world genre and out of a lot of games like that. Sometimes in genres I play a game and then I get what I want out of it and then I don't ever need to play a game like that ever again. And so Vice City, the music was so good and I didn't I would just drive around the city like in circles, just drive around from one corner of the map to the other corner of the map in a circle, and drive as fast as I could, and listen to '80s music and try to get escape cops from 3 or 4 or 5 stars, and The music was so good. I could listen to that all day, and it was almost like for $50, you got an album that had like 120 songs on it. The game had 120 songs, I think, something like that, and that's a good value for $50 back then. Now all music is free on Spotify, but or YouTube, but back then, $50 for 120 songs was a good value. It was a good deal. Like if you bought the CD that had all those on them, you would pay more money than you pay for the game. They sold the CD separately, and the CDs probably cost about $80. They cost more than the game, but you could just play the game and listen to the music. I've been doing that ever since. I listen to music while I play, like Albion Online, or I play another game. I used to play Overwatch and just listen to music while I play it. I've been doing that. I've been doing that. I've been doing that for a while, but you know, I really appreciate Vice City because it introduced me to so much '80s music, and and it got me interested in the genre, and I'll always appreciate them for doing that. I used to see commercials for um, box sets of the best of the '80s, where they used to show pictures of the Eurythmics and Prince, and all those weird looking, uh, what's the word, androgynous androgynous '80s singers, and I used to see commercials for that for buy now the best of the '80s on this box set for $10 or $20 or whatever. And I used to see commercials for that. I was like, wow, that is some wild music. That was the first time I remember specifically connecting '80s music with wild aesthetic and wild voices and super high vocals and almost really. I've heard people say it sounds freakish. I've heard people say '80s music sounds freakish, and yeah, you could say it's freakish. I identify as a freak personally, so I don't mind that connotation. But yeah, I do think the vocals in '80s music is freakish, because it's so high. They go so high with their notes, like Prince, Michael Jackson. Now Michael Jackson, his dad gave him drugs when he was a teenager, so his voice didn't go deep. Michael Jackson, his voice never dropped because his dad gave him drugs, so he didn't go through puberty. That's how intense Michael Jackson wanted, or his dad wanted him to be a superstar. Was he wanted him to have a high voice so that he can hit those high vocals. Of course, he can dance, he can do all the other stuff, but he used performance enhancing drugs to have high vocals. That who knows what those drugs did to Michael Jackson in other ways, but he took a lot of drugs. And I feel bad for him, but he also did a lot of bad things. I don't feel bad for him because he was a bad person. I think he was a bad person. If the allegations are true against Michael Jackson. Anyways, different story. Um, so Vice City had so much great music. I would just drive around the city in circles. Just the city was so big, it would take an hour to drive around the whole city. Take an hour, and you just listen to. And I liked all the radio stations. I liked the Emotions. I liked the Wave station. I remember some of them what they're called. I liked the hip hop station. I liked what were the other ones? I didn't like the Spanish station as much because I don't speak Spanish, but my sister liked that one the best. But I like the ones that play the new wave music and the synth pop, and oh my god, there's so much great music, and a lot of them are like from small bands like Go West, which Go West was did well, but they didn't do like you know they weren't like Michael Jackson big. So like they didn't play songs like Michael Jackson on Vice City. I don't think they would play smaller bands like Go West, where it's like, wow, this is really interesting. Most people have never heard of this stuff before, and I was introduced to it, and most people didn't listen to that music like I did. I mean, most people didn't play Vice City, but some people did play Vice City and did hear all this music, and a lot of people didn't play the game because like my cousin doesn't like '80s music, and so he didn't play the game because he doesn't like it. He's not into the '80s music. He's more into like '90s music and whatever. But uh, anyways, so a lot of people like don't feel that connection to Vice City like I do. Like to me, that was a huge part of my life going to Vice City, and I'll always remember that. And it's such a memorable time. It was my first open world game. What that was like, going to Vice City for the first time and doing whatever you want, being whoever you want. That's what I thought the future of video games were gonna be, was just be whoever you want. And anyways, I thought that's what the future of the world was gonna be like. Be whatever you want to be. But Vice City is a very memorable time in my life, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. I wouldn't trade spending all that time in Vice City for anything. Um, Even though I should have focused on my grades more, I should have studied more. But there's only so much you can study. There's only so much you can. There's so much homework you can do. But what else? There's another point I wanted to make about Vice City. Yeah, so other people didn't make that connection with '80s music like I did, because most people didn't play Vice City, and but a lot of millennials do like Vice City, do like '80s music because of Vice City. A lot of people did make that connection, but I made a really strong connection with that music. I still listen to that music today all the time, and it makes me feel good, and um, it had a huge impact on my life. You could say it was almost a negative impact because I got addicted to video games. But it's not bad to get addicted to video games. I could get addicted to drugs instead, or drinking beer or whatever. I could have got addicted to other things, but it's not that bad to get addicted to that. Um, it was so fun though. It was so fun, that game. And ever since then, I've been exploring music, exploring '80s music, trying to figure out what those songs were, and now I add them to playlists on Spotify, and it's just like I still connect that. I still look up those '80s songs and make those connections, and um, explore what are more songs from that era. What more can I discover? And there's always more. You always think, oh, I ran out of music. No, I didn't run out of music. There's always more music left to discover, and so it's really exciting to think about that. Um, Anyways, so uh, please subscribe to this channel if you would be part of the community. Let me know in the comments below. Um, did you play Vice City? Did you enjoy the '80s music in Vice City? What are your memories of Vice City? Let me know in the comments below. Please like the video. It really helps out the channel a lot. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye.